Imagine this, a glittering charity gala, Manhattan's elite under crystal chandeliers, but one woman spots her toxic ex across the room. What happens when she grabs a stranger to dance, and that stranger changes everything? Welcome to Whisper Fable, where secrets unravel and hearts collide. Olivia Mitchell smoothed down her emerald cocktail dress as she scanned the crowded charity gala. The crystal chandeliers of the Grand Meridian Hotel ballroom cast a golden glow over Manhattan's elite, making everyone look slightly more glamorous than they already were. She clutched her champagne flute tighter when she spotted him across the room. Ryan Cooper, her ex-boyfriend, whose emotional manipulation had taken her nearly 2 years to recover from. He was laughing with a group of people, looking as charming as ever in his tailored tuxedo. "Just breathe," she whispered to herself, taking a long sip of champagne. This was supposed to be a celebration. After years of hard work, she had finally secured a position as head of marketing at Archer Industries, one of New York's most prestigious corporations. Tonight was her first official appearance as part of the executive team, though she had yet to meet the famously private CEO, Jackson Archer. "I look like you've seen a ghost," said a voice beside her. Olivia turned to find her best friend and co-worker, Mia Barnes, holding 2 fresh glasses of champagne. "Worse. Ryan's here." Olivia accepted the glass Mia offered. 30 people in this ballroom, and my ex had to be one of them. Mia's eyes widened. "Toxic Ryan, the one who told you that you'd never make it in the corporate world because you were too sensitive." Olivia nodded, taking another generous sip of champagne. "The very same. And of course, he's talking to Walter Jenkins from the board of directors. I bet he's trying to network his way into an interview at Archer." "Well, you're the one who got the job without his help, so I'd call that karma," Mia said with satisfaction. "Besides, you look incredible tonight. Show him what he's missing." The live band transitioned from soft background music to a more upbeat melody. Couples began making their way to the dance floor, and Olivia watched as Ryan excused himself from his conversation, heading in her direction. "Oh no, he's coming over here," she whispered urgently. "I can't deal with him tonight. Not when I'm trying to make a good impression." Panic surged through her as Ryan drew closer. The confident persona she'd built since their breakup threatened to crumble. Their relationship had ended 18 months ago, but the memories of his subtle put-downs and constant criticism still lingered. He had a way of making her doubt herself with just a look. In her desperation, Olivia turned to the tall, dark-haired stranger standing nearby. His back was to her, and he seemed to be observing the crowd with quiet interest. Without thinking, she leaned closer to him. "Could you dance with me? My toxic ex is watching," she whispered, her heart pounding. "Please, but hold on, what if that stranger isn't a stranger at all? What if he's the one man who could turn her world upside down?" "Stay with Whisper Fable for the twist you won't see coming." The stranger turned and Olivia found herself looking into the most striking pair of blue eyes she'd ever seen. His expression was one of surprise, quickly followed by something unreadable as he glanced over her shoulder, presumably at Ryan approaching. "I'd be honored," he said, his voice deep and smooth. He set his drink down and offered his hand. "Let's not keep him waiting." Relief flooded through Olivia as she placed her hand in his. His palm was warm, his grip confident as he led her onto the dance floor. Just before they disappeared into the crowd, she caught Ryan's confused expression and a small thrill of satisfaction ran through her. "Thank you," she said as they reached the center of the dance floor. "I'm Olivia, by the way, Olivia Mitchell." A flicker of recognition crossed his face, but he simply smiled and placed his hand on her waist. "James," he replied as they began to move to the music. Olivia realized that James was an excellent dancer. He guided her effortlessly across the floor, his steps precise but natural. For someone who had agreed to dance with a stranger on a moment's notice, he seemed remarkably at ease. "So this ex of yours," James said, his tone conversational. "What makes him toxic?" Olivia hesitated. "That's probably not the best small talk for dancing with a stranger." The corner of his mouth lifted. "True, but I'm curious about the man who has you running into the arms of someone you've never met." "When you put it that way, it does sound dramatic," she admitted with a small laugh. "Ryan and I dated for almost 2 years. He's charming and successful, but he has a way of diminishing people. By the time we broke up, I barely recognized myself." James's expression darkened slightly. "Men like that rely on making others feel small so they can feel big." "Exactly," Olivia said, surprised by his insight. "I didn't realize how much his criticism had affected me until after we split. It took a long time to rebuild my confidence." "And yet, here you are," James said, his eyes meeting hers with unexpected warmth. "At one of the most prestigious events in New York, looking absolutely stunning." Olivia felt her cheeks warm at the compliment. There was something about this stranger that made her feel both nervous and completely at ease. "Thank you for the rescue. I promise I don't usually ambush men at charity events." "I'm glad you made an exception tonight," he replied. His smile genuine. As they continued to dance, Olivia found herself relaxing into his lead. The tension that had gripped her at the sight of Ryan began to dissipate. James was easy to talk to, asking questions about her work, and listening intently to her answers. He mentioned that he was in business as well, though he was vague about specifics. "So, what brings you to this gala?" she asked as the song transitioned into a slower number. She should have excused herself now that the immediate threat of Ryan had passed. But she found herself staying, allowing James to draw her slightly closer. "I have a vested interest in the children's hospital this event is supporting," he replied. "And yourself?" "I'm here representing Archer Industries. I just started as their head of marketing," she explained, unable to keep the pride from her voice. Something flickered in his expression, amusement perhaps, but he quickly masked it. "Congratulations. That's quite an achievement. How are you finding it so far?" "Challenging, but exciting, though I have yet to meet the elusive Mr. Archer. Apparently, he's not one for office appearances." James chuckled. "Maybe he's shy. A billionaire CEO who's built one of the most successful tech companies in the country." "Somehow, I doubt that," Olivia replied with a laugh. "More likely too busy or too important to mingle with the new hires." The song ended and James stepped back, though he kept hold of her hand. "Would you like a drink?" he offered. Olivia glanced around the ballroom. Ryan was nowhere to be seen, and she spotted Mia giving her a not-so-subtle thumbs up from across the room. "I'd like that," she decided. They made their way to a quieter corner of the ballroom, where James procured 2 glasses of champagne. As they talked, Olivia found herself increasingly drawn to this mysterious man. There was a quiet confidence about him that was utterly different from Ryan's showy charm. When James asked questions about her work, he seemed genuinely interested in her responses. The evening passed in a pleasant blur until Mia appeared at Olivia's side, apologetically interrupting their conversation. "I'm so sorry, but Walter Jenkins is looking for you. He wants to introduce you to some potential clients." Olivia turned to James with regret. "Duty calls, it seems. Thank you again for the dancing and the conversation." James took her hand and brought it to his lips in an old-fashioned gesture that would have seemed affected from anyone else. "The pleasure was mine, Olivia Mitchell. Perhaps we'll meet again soon." As she walked away, Olivia couldn't help but look back. James raised his glass slightly in a silent toast, his enigmatic smile making her wonder if she should have asked for his number. What Olivia didn't know as she rejoined her colleagues was that James was actually Jackson Archer himself, the CEO she had just described as too busy or too important to meet with new hires. And as he watched her confidently discussing marketing strategies with potential clients, Jackson Archer made a mental note to attend the Monday morning meeting at his company for the first time in over a year. 2 worlds colliding. The Monday morning executive meeting at Archer Industries was already underway when Olivia rushed in 5 minutes late. Her weekend had been consumed by post-gala follow-ups with potential clients, leaving little time for sleep. She slid into an empty chair at the conference table, mouthing an apology to her direct supervisor, Victoria Hayes. "As I was saying," Victoria continued, "our third quarter projections are strong, but we need to push harder on the new product line launch." She clicked to the next slide of her presentation. "Marketing has prepared a comprehensive strategy, which Olivia will present shortly." Olivia flipped open her portfolio, mentally reviewing her talking points. This was her first major presentation to the executive team, and she was determined to make an impression. She was so focused on her notes that she almost missed the sudden shift in the room's atmosphere, the straightening of spines, the nudging of elbows. When the conference room door opened, she didn't immediately look up. "Good morning, everyone. Please don't let me interrupt." That voice. Olivia's head snapped up and her breath caught in her throat. Standing at the head of the table, dressed in an impeccable charcoal suit, was James, except he clearly wasn't James at all. The expressions on her colleagues' faces told her everything she needed to know even before Victoria spoke. "Mr. Archer, this is unexpected. We're honored to have you join us this morning." Jackson Archer, her mysterious dance partner from the gala, the man she had complained to about his own absence from the office, the billionaire CEO of the entire company, smiled politely as he took the empty seat at the head of the table. His eyes met Olivia's briefly, a hint of amusement dancing in their blue depths. "I thought it was time I became more involved in the day-to-day operations," he said smoothly. "Please continue, Victoria." Olivia's mind raced as Victoria resumed her presentation. She had danced with Jackson Archer. She had told Jackson Archer that Jackson Archer was too important to meet new hires. She had even implied that he might be arrogant. Heat crept up her neck as the mortifying reality sank in. When Victoria finally turned the floor over to her, Olivia forced herself to stand on legs that felt like jelly. "Good morning," she began, her voice remarkably steady despite her internal panic. "As the newest member of the executive team, I'm excited to share our marketing strategy for the Archer Elite line. Drawing on years of professional experience, Olivia pushed aside her personal embarrassment and launched into her presentation. Slide by slide, she outlined the comprehensive marketing approach she had developed, focusing on digital innovation and targeted outreach. As she spoke, she carefully avoided looking directly at Jackson, though she could feel his gaze on her. The research indicates that our target demographic responds strongly to authentic storytelling, she explained, clicking to a slide showing engagement metrics. I propose we pivot from our traditional product-focused advertising to campaigns that highlight real-world applications and customer experiences. An interesting approach, Jackson commented, speaking for the first time since her presentation began. But won't that dilute our luxury brand positioning? Olivia finally allowed herself to look at him directly. There was nothing in his expression to suggest he was thinking about their dance or her embarrassing comments. This was purely business. Actually, Mr. Archer, she replied, surprised by her own confidence. Our market research shows that modern luxury consumers value authenticity over exclusivity. They want products that enhance their lives, not just status symbols. A flicker of approval crossed his face. Continue. By the time she concluded her presentation, Olivia had almost forgotten the awkwardness of their prior meeting. The executive team's response was enthusiastic, with several department heads immediately suggesting collaborations. Even Victoria looked impressed. Thank you, Olivia, Jackson said as she gathered her materials. I'd like to discuss some of these ideas further. Are you available this afternoon? Before she could respond, his assistant appeared at the door, announcing his next appointment had arrived. Jackson rose, buttoning his suit jacket. My office, 3 o'clock, he said to Olivia, not waiting for her agreement before he strode from the room. As the meeting dispersed, Mia cornered her in the hallway, eyes wide. Did I just hear Jackson Archer himself request a private meeting with you? Apparently, Olivia replied, still processing the morning's events. Mia lowered her voice. And did I see something pass between you two, like he already knows you? Olivia hesitated. Remember the man I danced with at the gala? The one who rescued me from Ryan? Mia's jaw dropped. No way. Yes way. And I may have told him that his alter ego, himself, was too important to meet with new employees. Oh my God, Mia whispered, a mixture of horror and delight on her face. You are so screwed. Thank you for that vote of confidence, Olivia said dryly. The rest of the morning passed in a blur of emails and conference calls, but Olivia couldn't focus. Why had Jackson Archer concealed his identity at the gala? And more importantly, why had he suddenly appeared at a meeting he typically avoided? At precisely 3 o'clock, Olivia stood outside the imposing double doors of the CEO's office on the top floor. She had never been to this level of the building before. Taking a deep breath, she knocked. Come in, called the now familiar voice. Jackson's office was surprisingly understated for a billionaire. Spacious but not ostentatious, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a panoramic view of the Manhattan skyline. He stood by the window, jacket off and sleeves rolled up, looking more like the James she had met than the formidable Mr. Archer. Olivia, he said, turning to face her. Please have a seat. She sat in one of the leather chairs across from his desk, posture perfect, portfolio ready. I've prepared some additional data points that support my proposal, she began, all business. Before we get to that, Jackson interrupted, sitting down across from her, I believe I owe you an explanation. Olivia's carefully constructed professional facade faltered. Sir, that's not necessary. Jackson, please, he corrected. And I think it is necessary. I wasn't completely honest with you at the gala. You told me your name was James, she pointed out, surprising herself with her boldness. He smiled slightly. It's my middle name. If that counts for anything. Why the deception? Olivia asked, genuine curiosity overcoming her nervousness. Why not just tell me who you were? Jackson leaned back in his chair, considering her question. When you approached me, you were looking for help, not trying to impress the CEO of your company. It was, refreshing. People treat me differently when they know who I am. Like Victoria nearly falling over herself this morning, Olivia suggested, then immediately regretted her candor. I'm sorry. That was unprofessional. To her surprise, Jackson laughed. Exactly like that. You, on the other hand, told me exactly what you thought of the elusive Mr. Archer without reservation. Olivia winced. About that, I apologize for my comments. They were inappropriate and presumptuous. They were honest, he corrected, and not entirely inaccurate. I have been disengaged from the day-to-day operations. Something I'm trying to remedy. An uncomfortable silence fell between them. Olivia couldn't help but wonder if her candid remarks at the gala had prompted his sudden interest in company operations. About your marketing proposal, Jackson said, abruptly changing the subject. I think you're onto something with the authentic storytelling angle, but I have concerns about implementation. For the next hour, they discussed her marketing strategy in detail. To Olivia's surprise, Jackson was not only knowledgeable, but genuinely interested in her ideas. He challenged her assumptions, pushed for clarification on certain points, but also acknowledged the strengths of her approach. It was the most intellectually stimulating conversation she'd had in years. As their meeting wound down, Jackson stood, signaling its end. I'm impressed, Olivia. Victoria was right to bring you on board. Thank you, she replied, gathering her materials. She hesitated at the door, then turned back. May I ask you something? He nodded, curiosity evident in his expression. Was it a coincidence that you showed up at the executive meeting the first workday after the gala? A slow smile spread across his face. What do you think? Before she could respond, his phone rang. He glanced at it, then back at her. We'll continue this discussion tomorrow. My office, same time. Olivia left with more questions than answers, but one thing was clear. Jackson Archer was nothing like she had expected. He was more perceptive, more engaged, and far more intriguing than the distant CEO she had imagined. What she didn't know was that as she rode the elevator down to her floor, Jackson was canceling his afternoon appointments to read her complete employee file. Or that Ryan Cooper had applied for a senior position at Archer Industries 3 days earlier with his interview scheduled for the following week. The coincidence was too perfect to ignore, and Jackson Archer didn't believe in coincidences. Over the next 2 weeks, Olivia's meetings with Jackson became a daily occurrence. What had started as discussions about her marketing strategy evolved into broader conversations about the company's direction. To her surprise, Jackson valued her outsider perspective and fresh ideas. He was nothing like the aloof CEO she had imagined, nor was he anything like Ryan. Your proposal for the international expansion is solid, Jackson said one afternoon, reviewing the documents she had prepared. They had fallen into a comfortable routine, meeting in his office, where they could speak freely without the watchful eyes of other executives. But I'm concerned about the timing with the Asian markets. Olivia nodded, making notes. I've been thinking the same thing. What if we staggered the launch, Europe first, then Asia 3 months later? Jackson considered this, tapping his pen against the desk. That could work. Draft a revised timeline for tomorrow. Already on it, she replied with a smile. As she gathered her papers, Jackson cleared his throat. There's a charity dinner this Saturday at the Pierre. The company always takes a table. I was hoping you might attend with me. Olivia looked up, startled. Was this a professional request or something more personal? The lines between them had been blurring, but neither had acknowledged it. As colleagues, of course, Jackson added quickly, perhaps sensing her hesitation. Of course, she echoed, ignoring the slight disappointment his clarification brought. I'd be happy to. Later that day, as Olivia was leaving the office, Mia cornered her by the elevator. So, you and the boss seem cozy, she said with a knowing smile. The rumor mill is working overtime. Olivia sighed. We're working on the international expansion. That's all. MHM. And that's why he personally requested you for the charity dinner. The one he usually skips. How did you even hear about that? Olivia asked, surprised. Mia rolled her eyes. His assistant told accounting. Who told HR? Who told me? Nothing stays secret around here. Before Olivia could respond, the elevator doors opened to reveal Victoria Hayes. The marketing director's expression was cool as she eyed Olivia. Burning the midnight oil again, Mitchell? Victoria asked, her tone falsely pleasant. Just finishing up some projections, Olivia replied neutrally. Victoria smiled thinly. Impressive how quickly you've caught Mr. Archer's attention, almost as if you knew exactly what he wanted to hear. The implication wasn't subtle. As the elevator descended, tension filled the small space. When Victoria exited on the 15th floor, Mia let out a low whistle. Wow. She's not even trying to hide her jealousy. Olivia frowned. I don't need this kind of attention. I just want to do my job. Well, when you're having daily private meetings with the billionaire CEO, people notice. Especially people who've been trying to get his attention for years. Like Victoria. The conversation weighed on Olivia as she made her way home. She had worked hard for her position, and her ideas were good. Jackson's approval was professional, not personal, wasn't it? Saturday evening arrived and Olivia found herself in a car Jackson had sent, headed to the Pierre Hotel. She had chosen a midnight blue gown, elegant but not flashy. When she arrived, Jackson was waiting in the lobby, looking impossibly handsome in a black tuxedo. You look beautiful, he said simply, offering his arm. The charity dinner was for a literacy foundation with Manhattan's elite in full attendance. Throughout the evening, Olivia noticed the curious glances directed their way as Jackson introduced her to investors and board members. He kept her close, his hand occasionally resting lightly on her back as they navigated the crowded ballroom during dinner. Seated at a table with several Archer Industries executives, including Victoria, Olivia felt the weight of scrutiny. Victoria's smile never reached her eyes, especially when Jackson leaned close to speak privately to Olivia. "Is everything all right?" Jackson asked quietly, noticing her tension. "Just feeling a bit observed," Olivia admitted. He glanced around, seeming to register the attention they were attracting. "Would you like to step outside for a moment? The terrace is usually quiet." The terrace overlooked Central Park, the city lights twinkling against the night sky. Olivia took a deep breath of the cool evening air, feeling some of her tension dissolve. "Better?" Jackson asked, standing beside her at the stone balustrade. "Much. Thank you." She turned to him. "Can I ask you something?" "Anything." "Why me?" The question had been bothering her for days. "Why did you choose to work so closely with me when you have an entire executive team with more experience at Archer Industries?" Jackson considered her question, his expression thoughtful. "Because you see things differently. You're not afraid to challenge conventional thinking or to challenge me." "I told you that you were too important to meet with employees," she reminded him with a small laugh. "Exactly. Do you know how rarely people tell me the truth about myself?" His voice had softened and he moved slightly closer. "It's valuable to me." There was something in his eyes that made her heart beat faster. The professional boundaries they had maintained seemed suddenly fragile in the moonlight. The moment was interrupted by the sound of the terrace door opening. They both turned to see Ryan Cooper step onto the terrace, stopping short when he spotted them. "Olivia," Ryan said, recovering quickly. "I thought that was you earlier. You look well." Olivia stiffened, unprepared for this encounter. "Ryan, I didn't know you'd be here." "Last-minute invitation," Ryan replied smoothly, his gaze shifting to Jackson. Recognition flashed in his eyes. "Mr. Archer, it's an honor." "Ryan Cooper." Jackson's expression remained impassive as he shook Ryan's hand. "Mr. Cooper. Olivia and I are old friends," Ryan continued, his charm on full display. "We go way back." "Is that so?" Jackson's tone was neutral, but Olivia sensed a sudden coldness. "Actually," Olivia interjected. "Ryan and I dated a couple of years ago. It didn't end well." Ryan's smile faltered. "Water under the bridge surely, especially since I hear we might be colleagues soon. My interview with Archer Industries is on Tuesday." Olivia felt the blood drain from her face. Ryan at Archer. The thought of seeing him daily, of having him potentially undermine her as he had during their relationship, was unbearable. Jackson's expression remained unreadable. "I wasn't aware we were considering new senior hires." "The CFO position," Ryan clarified, looking smug. "Walter Jenkins personally recommended me after we met at the hospital gala." Jackson's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "I see. If you'll excuse us, Mr. Cooper, Ms. Mitchell and I have business to discuss." Without waiting for a response, Jackson guided Olivia back inside, his hand firm at the small of her back. "I had no idea he was interviewing," Olivia said once they were safely away from Ryan. "This can't be a coincidence." "It's not," Jackson replied, his voice tight. "The CFO position has been filled internally for months. We never posted it publicly." "Then why would Walter?" "I intend to find out." Jackson's expression was grim. "I'm sorry, but I need to make a few calls. Will you be all right if I step away briefly?" Olivia nodded, though unease settled in her stomach. As Jackson disappeared toward the hotel lobby, she made her way to the ladies' room to collect herself. Inside, she found Victoria touching up her makeup. "Trouble in paradise already?" Victoria asked with false concern. "I saw Cooper corner you both on the terrace." "It was nothing," Olivia replied curtly, moving to the sink. Victoria turned to face her directly. "You know, it's interesting how quickly you've risen in Jackson's esteem. Almost as quickly as Ryan Cooper secured an interview for a position that wasn't even open." Olivia froze, meeting Victoria's gaze in the mirror. "What are you implying?" "Only that certain coincidences raise questions, like how you and Cooper both appeared at Archer Industries within weeks of each other. Or how you've managed to monopolize the CEO's time despite having no significant track record in the industry." "My credentials speak for themselves," Olivia said, anger rising. "And I have no connection to Ryan beyond a past I'd rather forget." Victoria's smile was cold. "Perhaps, but the board might see things differently, especially when they learn about your close relationship with Jackson." As Victoria swept from the room, Olivia gripped the edge of the sink, her mind racing. The implication was clear. Victoria thought she and Ryan were working together somehow, using their relationship with Jackson to gain advantage. When she emerged, Jackson was waiting in the hallway, his expression troubled. I need to tell you something, he said without preamble, but not here. They made their excuses and left the event early, the tension between them palpable in the back seat of his car. Walter claims he doesn't remember meeting Cooper at the gala, Jackson explained as they drove through the city. Yet Cooper had his personal contact information and an invitation to apply for a position that doesn't exist. That makes no sense, Olivia said. Bewildered, unless someone else arranged it. Jackson turned to her, his expression grave. Olivia, I think Ryan is being used to sabotage you and possibly me. Someone at Archer Industries wants to create the appearance of impropriety between us. The revelation hit Olivia like a physical blow. Victoria, she whispered. She just implied as much to me in the ladies' room. Victoria has wanted the COO position for years, Jackson said, pieces falling into place. My father always blocked her advancement, and I've continued his policy. She must see you as a threat to her ambitions. But why involve Ryan? Because he's your weakness and she thinks she can use him to get to me. And now, the plot thickens. What if the ex wasn't just toxic, but part of a larger scheme to take down everything Olivia's fought for? Keep listening to Whisper Fable, the drama is just heating up. Monday morning brought a tense atmosphere to Archer Industries. Olivia arrived early, hoping to avoid unnecessary interactions, but found Jackson waiting by her office door. We need to talk, he said quietly, gesturing for her to follow him to a small conference room. Once inside, he closed the door and turned to face her. I've spent the weekend investigating Victoria and Ryan's connection. It's worse than we thought. Olivia sat down, steeling herself. What did you find? Victoria and Ryan have known each other for years. They worked together at Summit Partners before you met him. Jackson placed a folder on the table between them. Victoria was the one who recommended Ryan apply for the position at your previous company where you two met. The implications crashed over Olivia like a wave. Are you saying our entire relationship was orchestrated? I don't know about that, Jackson admitted, his expression grim. But what's clear is that Victoria has been tracking your career for some time. When you were hired here, it wasn't a coincidence. Olivia's mind raced, connecting dots she'd never seen before. Ryan always encouraged me to apply for positions that pulled me away from leadership tracks. He'd say I wasn't ready, that I needed more experience. She looked up at Jackson, realization dawning. He was sabotaging my career while making it seem like he was being supportive. And Victoria was likely pulling strings in the background, Jackson added. The question is why? Olivia opened the folder, scanning the documents inside, email correspondences, meeting calendars, financial records. These go back 5 years, she said, astonished. Before I even met Ryan. Keep reading, Jackson urged. As she turned the pages, a pattern emerged. Victoria had been systematically undermining talented women in marketing across several companies, creating a network of loyal subordinates who owed their positions to her influence. She's building her own empire, Olivia murmured. But why target me specifically? Jackson hesitated before responding. There's something you should know about my father's company, something not many people are aware of. He moved to sit beside her, their shoulders almost touching. Archer Industries was built on my mother's marketing strategies. My father was the business mind, but she was the creative force. When she died 10 years ago, my father established a trust in her name, the Eleanor Archer Foundation. According to the company charter, control of that foundation, which owns 30% of Archer Industries, passes to the chief marketing officer after holding the position for 1 year. Olivia's eyes widened. And Victoria has been acting CMO for 11 months, Jackson confirmed. She's 1 month away from controlling nearly a third of the company. But I don't understand, Olivia said, confusion evident in her voice. I'm not a threat to her position. I'm head of marketing, not chief marketing officer. No, but your ideas have caught the board's attention. My attention. Jackson's gaze held hers. Victoria knows I've been considering restructuring the marketing division with fresh leadership. The pieces suddenly fit together with startling clarity. So, she brought Ryan in to discredit me. To make it look like I was using a personal connection to advance my career and to undermine my judgment in the process. If the board believes I've been making decisions based on personal attraction rather than business acumen, they might question other decisions you've influenced. Olivia finished, the full scope of Victoria's plan becoming clear, including any restructuring of the marketing division. Jackson nodded, his expression troubled. The board meeting is tomorrow. Victoria will officially be named CMO unless we can prove what she's been doing. What do we have besides circumstantial evidence? Olivia asked, flipping through the folder again. This shows a pattern, but nothing definitively illegal or against company policy. We need something concrete, Jackson agreed, standing to pace the small room. Something that proves Victoria and Ryan are actively conspiring. A thought occurred to Olivia. Ryan's interview is tomorrow morning before the board meeting. If we could somehow get him to admit the connection. He's too careful for that, Jackson said, shaking his head. He'd never incriminate himself directly. Olivia considered this, then straightened as an idea formed. Maybe he doesn't have to. What if he thought he was speaking to someone who already knew, someone he trusts? Jackson's eyes lit with understanding. Victoria. Exactly. If Ryan believed he was talking to Victoria in confidence, he might reveal details of their arrangement. Olivia leaned forward eagerly. Do you have access to the company's communication systems? I own the company, Jackson replied with a wry smile. I have access to everything. The plan came together quickly. Using the company's secure messaging system, they would send Ryan a message that appeared to come from Victoria requesting a meeting before his interview. The real Victoria would be in a budget meeting at that time, creating the perfect opportunity to confront Ryan. The next morning, Olivia waited nervously in a small meeting room on the executive floor. Jackson had arranged for the room to be equipped with recording devices, legal in New York for business purposes, he'd assured her. He's on his way up, Jackson said, checking his phone. Remember, you don't need a full confession. Just enough to establish their connection and intent. Olivia nodded, smoothing her skirt with trembling hands. What if he doesn't say anything incriminating? Then we go with plan B. I cancel his interview and delay the board meeting while we gather more evidence. Jackson squeezed her shoulder reassuringly. But I have faith in you, Olivia. You're stronger than he knows. With that, Jackson slipped into the adjacent observation room, leaving Olivia alone with her thoughts. Minutes later, there was a knock at the door. Ryan Cooper entered, looking exactly as she remembered, confident, handsome, and utterly sure of himself. His expression shifted from expectation to surprise when he saw her. Olivia, where's Victoria? Running late, Olivia lied smoothly. She asked me to brief you before she arrives. Suspicion flashed across Ryan's face. Why would she do that? Because we need to get our stories straight, don't we? Olivia maintained steady eye contact, channeling the confidence she'd built since leaving him. About how we know each other, about my role here. Ryan's posture relaxed slightly, though wariness remained in his eyes. Victoria didn't mention involving you directly. Plans change, Olivia replied with a shrug. The board meeting was moved up. We need to accelerate things. What exactly did Victoria tell you? Ryan asked cautiously. Olivia took a calculated risk. Everything. About your history together, about your role in monitoring my career, about the Eleanor Archer Foundation. The mention of the foundation was the gamble. If Ryan wasn't aware of it, he'd question her immediately. Instead, he exhaled slowly and moved further into the room. So, you know what's at stake. Relief flooded Olivia, though she kept her expression neutral. 30% of Archer Industries. That's why Victoria's been tracking me since Summit Partners, isn't it? She saw me as a potential threat even then. Ryan smiled, the charming expression she had once found so attractive, now seeming predatory. Victoria has always been good at identifying threats early. When she saw your marketing proposal at Summit, she knew you had potential to disrupt her plans. That's why she suggested I take an interest in you. The confirmation of what she had suspected was like a knife to the heart, but Olivia maintained her composure. Our entire relationship was a setup. Not entirely, Ryan said, his tone almost consoling. Victoria wanted me to evaluate whether you were ambitious enough to be dangerous. The relationship just made that easier. And your constant criticism, the way you undermined my confidence? Ryan shrugged. Career management. Victoria needed you competent enough to be useful, but not confident enough to be competition. You have talent, Olivia, but you've always been too emotional for true leadership. The familiar words, so similar to the criticisms he had leveled at her throughout their relationship, no longer had the power to wound her. Instead, they strengthened her resolve. And now, she asked, keeping him talking. What's Victoria's plan for Archer Industries once she controls the foundation? Restructuring, starting with the executive team. Jackson Archer is too much like his father, sentimental about legacy. Ryan glanced at his watch. Speaking of Victoria, she should have been here by now. She's not coming, Olivia said, rising from her seat. But thank you for confirming everything we suspected. The door to the observation room opened and Jackson stepped out. His expression hard as he looked at Ryan. Mr. Cooper? I believe we need to have a different kind of conversation. The color drained from Ryan's face as he realized the trap he had walked into. This was a setup. No, Olivia corrected, a sense of liberation washing over her. This was justice. 3 hours later, Olivia sat in the boardroom beside Jackson as he addressed the assembled board members. Victoria Hayes sat across the table, her usually immaculate appearance slightly disheveled, her expression one of barely contained fury. Based on the evidence presented, Jackson concluded, playing the recording of Ryan's conversation with Olivia. I am recommending the immediate termination of Victoria Hayes's employment with Archer Industries for ethical violations and corporate espionage. The board's vote was unanimous. As security escorted Victoria from the building, she paused beside Olivia. He'll do the same to you eventually, she hissed. Men like Archer and Cooper always do. Olivia met her gaze steadily. The difference is I know my worth now, and it has nothing to do with any man's validation. In the aftermath, the board appointed Olivia as interim chief marketing officer with a formal review scheduled in 6 months. As the boardroom emptied, Jackson remained beside her, his expression thoughtful. What Ryan and Victoria did to you was unconscionable, he said quietly. Using your past to manipulate your future. They underestimated me, Olivia replied. They thought my past defined me. Jackson smiled, the warmth in his eyes now unfettered by professional constraints. I never made that mistake. From the moment you asked me to dance, I saw someone exceptional. 6 months later, as spring bloomed across Manhattan, Olivia was officially named Chief Marketing Officer of Archer Industries. The Eleanor Archer Foundation, under her guidance, launched initiatives supporting women in business leadership across the country. And when Jackson Archer asked her to dance at the foundation's inaugural gala, there were no pretenses between them. Only the honest connection of two people who had seen past each other's defenses to the truth beneath. Could you dance with me? He whispered in her ear as they swayed to the music. Not because of any ex watching, but because there's nowhere else I'd rather be. Olivia smiled up at him, finally free of the shadows that had followed her for so long. I thought you'd never ask. Thanks for joining Whisper Fable. Subscribe for more tales of triumph, betrayal, and unexpected romance.